Hello and welcome to the Muse Talkie podcast with me and
Myself, Josh.
excellent. We don't actually have a name for this podcast because we're just lumping this in with the rig stuff, where we talk about Matt Bellamy's guitar rig stuff. But in this one, we're going to talk about something a bit different, where we are going to relay our thoughts, theories, hopes, dreams as to where we think Muse are going. And what we could expect for their next album. We've got some theories, we've got some things to talk about. But before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe down below. Let us know what you think about the podcast by commenting, and also like it. It costs nothing, and it really, really helps. And after that, I would like to introduce Josh's room. I didn't in the last podcast about the second law rig, or unless that's going out after this, because it's a lot to animate and edit. But yeah, Josh's room is actually, he looks like he doesn't live, in a hostel. Looks like he lives in an
A
actual
squat.
house, in a squat. And also introducing Josh's new haircut.
Yeah, my very 90s Take That inspired haircut.
I was going to go with more of a
Yeah.
Backstreet Boys thing because I could just, you could just,
Yeah, actually, yeah.
yep,
Any boy band throughout
any
that era, I think. Yeah.
insert boy band here. Okay, so with that housekeeping out of the way, so let's dive into our thoughts, theories, observations, hopes, dreams, and potentially what we don't want to see on this upcoming Muse album. So where we are at time of recording, it is the 8th of February. The only thing that we've had is a picture of Dom and Matt at a piano, with Matt playing it and Dom, I guess, is also there along for the ride. It's always interesting, these opening parts for new Muse albums, because usually it's Matt doing something and either Chris or Dom kind of just, they are also there. Not really, overwatching. It looks, the image looks really quite staged. It's very much not in the middle of them doing something. It looks very much like, right, we need to get an image together for an email post to kick off the direction of a wider marketing campaign that's going to last X number of months. I don't have insight of their social media strategy for this album, so I'm going to stop there with my speculation on their digital comm strategy. Besides, Muse don't run their own social media; they get a company to do it, so they probably had someone take a picture to send it off.
Yeah, I think so.
They've written some songs. They've not played them apart from Unraveling, and we'll get to that later on, where they've got an idea of where they're going, but they'd be stupid not to rework them, develop them, write more songs so you have more than you need. When previously, for Black Holes or something, that they said that they'd written 30 songs and they just pick the best of them. And then the other way around, they could have songs before the album comes out and then they drop them. Brilliant example of that is Eternally Missed. They thought that was going to be great, their next big song. They had that, they were playing it around 2002, thinking it was going to be great, and then in the making of Absolution, they were saying they thought it was going to be great, big, but then they were seeing it as it was not even going to make the cut as a B-side. It later did for Hysteria, which was another song that they had around the time, and to see how those two songs essentially flipped, where Hysteria was very rusty, very underproduced, very much a song written on the road, and Eternally Missed essentially was kind of pretty much there with how its structure was, and they just flipped roles. Interesting to see. Other examples of Fury, famously relegated to a B-side by Dom and Chris in favor of what was it? Swapped out with, as that it was either Endlessly or Raw by Secrecy.
Yeah. It was one of those two.
Yeah, a silly.
Testing my memory.
a silly decision in my view. And then another great one of, they had the song, it was just missed the mark, was easily one of my favorite deep cuts and one of my actual favorite Muse songs. And they said at that By Request show that they had the song and it was made just a bit too late before the album went to publish. Anyway, let's move on. I want to talk about Muse's upcoming album, and I assume that you do too, Josh.
Absolutely.
I want to ask questions about what could what's it going to sound like, what's going to be in it, what's going to be the content of it, what's the direction of it, what are the sounds that we can expect. But I have a theory that this could potentially be their best album in at least the last 10 years. And I want to see if that tickles your fancy.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I can definitely see. I think we're overdue that kind of best album in 10 years for sure, because it's and obviously all of this when it comes to saying, have we had it, have we not, what defined best. I mean, obviously it's all in our opinion, and but I do think the Muse, most of the Muse fan base have agreed that we'd like to see some originality and some of their past come back to Muse albums. And yeah, I think for me, like the last album that I really, I guess, identified that, yeah, this is a Muse album, that kind of thought process for me personally would have been Drones, just because obviously you've got the Psycho riff on there, which has been around for years, and it's just more of a riff based album, I think, which for me definitely identifies as this is a Muse album. Whereas since then, it's obviously taken many different weird and wonderful directions to the distaste of many Muse fans. um, me included. But I think that yeah, there's been a couple of songs in there that have always sort of stood out as like that's I like this one and I like that one. You can't just say obviously it's been awful up until that point, because they do, they're known for sort of putting a few tracks in there, go, that does remind me a little bit of old Muse in places. But yeah, no, I think to come back to your point for sure, I think we are overdue best album in 10 years from Muse for sure, 100%. I think that, and this could be the chance that the listening opportunity we are so waiting for.
But, I totally agree, and I'm going to say for you, pun intended, where you're saying long overdue. Um, but I think
Absolutely, yeah.
I like what you're saying, and I think, but just to kind of like, I don't to not to be party pooper. That's such a modern phrase. You have to be. I think you have to be really careful when we're saying, saying things like harkening back to like their what they've done before, previously, and so on. I mean, a good example
You
of
do,
that,
yeah.
of why that's good to be aware of that, is that when they were doing and regarding and thinking about and building Will of the People, they looked at it as a sort of best of Muse, but like best of Muse styles,
Mm,
and
mm.
some bits of it were there, some bits of it worked, but so many other bits of it really missed the mark. And so it's nice to go, let's think back to like some of the greatest like Muse moments. We're going to talk, thinking about the impact of like Citizen Erased, the impact of Plug-in Baby, Bliss, Muscle Museum. They've not really hit those elements. I mean, so breaking that down to things like, okay, Citizen Erased. What's like the big thing about that? You've got your your big sound and then your smaller sound. So that's very like grunge. You know, Nirvana is big on like big sound and then little sound. But Teen Smells Like Teen Spirit is the prime example of that. Citizen Erased does that. It's also a prog song, a Muse prog song. Okay, that's great. Big seven string riff. Um, they've done that with other songs, like Supremacy, Survival, in a sort of, it's on a six string,
Mm.
but in a weird way, The Globalist.
Yeah.
And it does do the big loud quiet and then but a piano ballad on the end. But I really don't think I'm going to see anyone ever say that The Globalist is better than Citizen Erased. Let's go back to things like Plug-in Baby, a very one of their biggest riffs ever. It's just an ascending and descending of the B minor scale. They've not done
Yeah.
anything like that since then. That one's quite easy to get into the territory of. We've already done that. Bliss, huge big sound and a nice arpeggio on it. Now they've done loads and loads of songs with arpeggios on it, but I think Bliss really stands out as the big one. Muscle Museum, proper old school guitar, drums, bass, and I just think they're so far removed from that headspace that I don't think they could recapture it unless they went to a studio with like very few bits of gear available, like maybe like 2 amps, no synths, and it's just them. They're never going to do that. Um, and the whole thing about like Will of the People, when they said they wanted a greatest hits vibe, is that's how I call it. The greatest hits
Yeah.
vibes of music. It's so dangerous to kind of fall into that pit there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I really do agree with that.
And
I
I,
really
and
do.
and I don't want to like bring all the energy about it. I just think it's really dangerous that thinking doing old music is going to work, because in the past couple of albums they've said that, where they are going to do it would go back to how they used to do things, or strip down and or whatever. And I'm like, does that work? Is that really, is that how they do things? You know, um,
Yeah.
so it's got to be always new. Muse always try and do a new thing, but it has to be done correctly. And I think at this moment they are in a position where they can actually get something that that's really going to knock it out of the park, because Matt's divorced, or getting divorced.
Yeah. I mean that is the big, huge theory at the moment,
Yeah, the
isn't it?
big yeah, we break it down. What is music? Muse are a band, and we're all about music. And what is music? Music is art, and art is suffering. And a breakup is a real big bit of suffering to go through. Think back to like hyper music. That's just an aggressive breakup song. I don't think I need to go into as to why. Just listen to the chorus. And
Yeah.
so we are at this point where I'm basing this off of that image that Muse put out, and what's not on Muse on Matt's ring finger, a wedding ring, and he after he got married, he was never seen without it. Conspicuous that he's not wearing it, and also in that I'm sure it was before in the build up to the end of the year in 2025, they were doing like thanks for listening to us. His wedding ring wasn't on there either.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And and that is where the as you say, that is where these albums have come from. They've lyrically, and just well, not even just lyrically, just all over. I mean, they've come from a place of being in a breakup, and coming from a place of pain, and I guess suffering in that sense. So that's where these a lot of these ideas really do obviously originate from, and as obviously terrible as it is for himself to go through
Absolutely,
this sort of thing.
absolutely.
It's
I would never wish this on anyone.
no,
I want you
absolutely.
to have a horrible time because I want to listen to some good music. That's not worth it. It's I'm not endorsing this for him. I'm not happy that he's divorced. So yes, a man is now miserable, and I'm going to get a good album out of it. That's awful. I'm not having that. I'm just saying this is how it goes. That
Yeah,
I think some of the greatest music ever has been written because someone's upset or sad. Some of the notable artists who've written great music from a sad perspective. Kurt Cobain as an obvious one. Maybe a deep cut or a less known one. Billie Holiday, really depressed heroin addict, but she wrote some
yeah,
amazing music, utterly stunning.
yeah, yeah. Well, even if you look at like a lot of Coldplay's old stuff, I don't. To be fair, I don't know. I think that's probably more because they were, this kind of like alternative rock band back then, and now they've become this more pop esque, crafted band, and that they are today. They're. By the way, they're if when we're talking about Coldplay, if you haven't listened to their older stuff, you'll see how much of it's literally night and day to where they are
Oh,
now compared to back then. And I think a lot of because you listen to Coldplay's music now, it's mostly just positivity, 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 good vibes, lots of color. Do you know what I mean? That is Coldplay now. But if you listen back to, my God, like some of their other albums,
well, yeah,
it's all,
it's parachutes and rush of blood to the head.
yep, it
The
is,
most
and
the most depressing stuff around at the time, but it was stunning, beautiful music, absolutely
mm,
amazing, and it was so
mm,
real. Um,
mm.
it
And
dunks all over their later stuff. I think like old Coldplay
yeah,
is so good, so rich, so
Oh, it's
dense,
so good.
so much
So
to it.
good.
With the stuff that they do now, where it's just color, positivity, it's like it's very much written by market research, a uh, young audience demographic, and people who cheat on their wives at stadium shows, and that's about it. But no depth, absolutely no depth. I think. Not positivity is
Absolutely.
nice, but like yeah, when Chris was at a piano, microphones right there, you can feel the room that he's in. Oh, you're just right
It
there with
really,
it.
it really is. It really is great. And and a lot of those songs have obviously not loads, but the standout songs like The Scientist, obviously most kids will know what that song is. They've heard it on TikTok,
Yep,
they've heard it in YouTube Shorts. That it's obviously a song that is still very very present in today's modern age. But
so
that
relevant.
again, that song comes from a real deep depressing point in his life, that enabled him to actually create those lyrics and also create the chords. And because everything that you make when you're in the studio at that time is obviously based on how you're feeling, because whatever you're playing is obviously going to speak, and it's going to give you feedback, and you're really going to get a sense of, yeah, that's what I want to write about today. Whereas if you're constantly in a happy mood and you're constantly like, life's, I guess, positive, but it's also very safe.
Yep.
There's no worries that I tend to have. I'm not worried about money. I'm not worried about relationships. I'm not worried about anything really. Um, if you're in that place, it's really hard to write a song, um, because writing about positivity is quite,
It's
I
only going
guess
to
would be
go
it's
so
quite,
far.
yeah,
There's
it's
only so many times where you could like dip your hand into that crapshoot of right. What can we be positive about? Well, the economy's bad. Fascism is on the rise. Um, but I'm really rich, so I can do all the nice things. I'll just do that. It's only going to go, huh, huh. And then,
yeah.
um, yeah, but you can see what other artists like do where they just invent stuff. I mean, I'm not gonna start naming names, otherwise you might get a bit you get shouted at by people. But there are some singers, artists out there that I just are a bit vapid. It's all written by analytics, all written by data, and you can see it in that because of how their career has changed. From there's two artists I'm thinking of in particular. Again, not gonna name them. Uh, but then it's just written by committee, and it's like it's not authentic. I think
Yeah.
there is a great way of articulating this from an episode of I'm sure it was Black Mirror.
Yeah.
So there
Yeah.
was
I
there was
think.
the Miley Cyrus Black Mirror episode.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I
she
know. I know.
played.
No, I know
Yeah,
you one you're
yeah,
talking about. Yeah.
yeah. She was this pop artist who's writing all these happy songs, and they find
That's
out she's
right.
just really, really, really upset and depressive, and wanted to make
Yeah.
something more expressive. And she basically just wanted to just turn into a Nine Inch Nails tribute act or something like that. And I was like, that's brilliant. And the fact that it was Miley Cyrus as well, who
Yeah.
had that image of previously Disney kid, then went a bit off the rails. And then started to balance out, and now is doing music that is arguably a bit more authentic, but this way more so, and music that I personally like a lot more. I really like Nine Inch Nails, and you know, industrial metal is great. Like Nine Inch Nails and band like Ramstein, great industrial kind of metally vibe. Then somewhere in the middle, good, great, and I think it's very self-aware for Miley to do that, and that's why I rate her on that level. I don't listen to her music, but I rate her openness for doing something like that. It's much more authentic.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And my point to go back to the depressive stuff is that the best music is when it's authentic. And hopefully, with this, we can get some positivity from it in a way. But like, obviously, yeah, the speculation from us is that is going through a divorce. And it has this potential of actually writing something real, not going into weird conspiracy theories because he's done that a couple of times. Not even that, but like something that's a bit too far reaching for maybe some people to grab hold of, and something real, something very relatable, but on a grand scale. this is why I think, and probably why you think, this could be potentially the best Muse album within at least the last 10 years. And that is purely from a lyrical standpoint. The musicality, their music theory and standing hasn't changed. It's always been, really good, really tip top. But coupling that capability of writing a good song with hopefully the subject of what he's going to be singing about, writing about, could really bring it down, make it really authentic, make it really hard hitting. We'll mention the genres that they're going to touch on in a bit, but the the subject matter of those songs, which is run much more right down to earth, could really humble the direction of where this album's going to go. And I think that's where they work best to really ground their music. And
Yeah, I
also,
agree.
this divorce of what's going on right now is the reason why I think, and maybe why you think, you say if you do, if you agree, why they're
No, I
no, no,
agree.
no,
I
why
agree
why
through and
their
through.
why their current dates at the moment have been cancelled, their tour dates have been cancelled
Oh yeah, no, no, no. Again, still agree. I think that is still the reason. Yeah.
because he's basically got to go to court.
Well, yeah, and
Yeah,
obviously divorces are messy, so they take
yeah,
time to sort out. So yeah, makes sense. Unfortunately,
total sense. Two kids. Well, yeah, but yeah, two
well,
kids.
one kid because one of them will be with Kate Hudson, won't
No,
it?
no, no, no. It's Bing. We got the daughter, and then he had a son. He's got two kids with her.
Oh no, of course he did. Yeah, of course he
Yeah.
did.
So two kids to sort out with this. So I think what we're saying from around this, yes, sad man separating from wife. At the moment, it's speculation, but the absence of a ring is a bit of a giveaway. Maybe other people have seen this, but I've not seen it commented anywhere. So at the moment, it's quite relevant to mention. No one's talking about it, and no one's picking up on the implications of this, i.e., we actually might get some good. No, I can take that back. It might mean that we get some deeper, actually more older Muse stuff because Matt's doing a big sad. I mean, obviously he separated from Kate Hudson after the second Law, but that was after the album was written, and then with the next album, Drones, um, he'd already gotten together with his wife at his then wife, then girlfriend Ellie at the time,
Yeah,
and the big sad had kind of been glossed over.
yeah.
It was so we didn't really get that. I mean, the only other time that we got close to that, well, the last time we got close to that was when he broke up with his what was it, his Italian girlfriend. Map of the
Oh
Pro-
yeah.
Map of the Problematic was kind of that song,
She
a
was
good one.
Italian, wasn't she?
Yeah, Psychologist or something like that. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, and then before that, I mean, Showbiz or Origin of Symmetry for kind of other relationship stuff. But this is like potentially the biggest time where we're going to kind of get to observe this and be part of it in one way, shape, or form. Obviously, we're not going to know the ins and outs.
Yeah.
That's just
Yeah.
where I think this is going. It's really sad. Any relationship breaking down, as long as it wasn't an abusive one, is not nice to see for anyone. But from us as an audience, we might get some good music out of it. So every cloud. That sounds really horrible from me, but I don't mean to be horrible with it.
No, I think the audience knows that obviously like what we're trying, yeah, exactly what we're trying to say is obviously that yeah, there's potential. I mean, good music does come out of bad times, and that we wouldn't wish them on anyone, but
Yeah,
we're just stating the obvious and what we think is likely to happen. Based on this, and yeah, we the likelihood is that it's obviously it's not a guarantee, but it definitely boosts the odds of getting a really good Muse album because of past albums being written about these kind of topics and being in that state of mind of not being like everything's okay and everything's safe. um
absolutely.
Obviously, there's other things to factor in there, of course, that Muse were young and they were writing. That they were writing from a place of we need to do super super good work because otherwise we're not going to make it. So you have that kind of added motivation and push to do better. And now that they have made it and they have had the success that they have, obviously that has completely worn off to the point now where it's probably almost dead as a dodo, really, that kind of feeling, I think.
Yes, that compliance, if you will, the complacency of not having to
Muse
break
quotes
through.
again.
Yeah, that we will, by the time we've finished however many podcasts we're going to do, maybe we'll try and get a pun of every single song they've ever done. That might
Muse
be difficult.
bingo, yeah.
Yeah, Muse bingo. That might be difficult for things like Muscle Museum. How you can turn that into a pun, I don't know. But I think you've absolutely hit the nail on the head there. That it's become too easy for them because they are established. They've got big songs. Songs like Madness. That's huge. And they don't have that urge to really to break into it. I think it's quite easy to say Muse are kind of past their prime, right? They're not the chart topping stuff. Like their best performing album, was the Resistance era. That's when just things blew up. We had the Twilight films were a big part of that success. And I think that things have then moved on for them, but they're at a point where they can just make whatever they want, which is nice to be in. They don't have to chase that kind of commercial side. They can make albums that they want to do, and they've done other projects. Chris did his solo album, his short EP. Matt's done his Beatles tribute band.
Yeah.
Although I don't know if Dom's done solo stuff. I think Dom's just much more chilled out and just doing this thing, more of an inconspicuous life. They're comfortable. Matt's also got a couple of other investments in businesses, so he doesn't have to worry about money. He's got stuff coming in, so he can just experiment with stuff musically. He's very much a musician. He does want to do stuff like that.
Yeah,
you can absolutely see it. But Muse being the big thing for them, the reason to get out of bed, as you'd imagine, hopefully.
Yeah.
And
sorry, I was just going to say, because I had a thought then when you mentioned songs like Madness, and there's actually quite a few tracks on the Second Law that I would a lot of the Second Law, most people would, if you're listening to, if I'm showing a 10-year-old child who's never listened to Muse before, I show him Absolution, I show him Second Law, one after the other, and they listen through the whole way. They're going to go, well, they sound the same. I guess the voice is the same, but that's two different, really two ends of the spectrum, because and that just shows how much they've changed over the time. But the one thing that was good about Second Law that I thought, in my opinion, songs like Madness, songs like Survival, are not. They're not what I would class as Muse, quote unquote Muse, but they do have a sense of passion that can be related to behind them. Certainly songs like Madness, when he sings the last note, that big note at the end of the song, the I need you now, that bit.
Yeah.
You can feel
exactly in that tone
passion.
Well.
You can, yeah, exactly. Not quite. I'm not going to wake up the neighbours or anything, but you can feel that the passion and the relation with the crowd when the crowd sing it back to them. That's always a great moment in the show. It's not my favourite Muse song, granted, but I do like it for that moment and the fact that it is relatable, because everybody at some stage will go through something like that, and it's a very simple song that can speak back to you about that particular point in your life, whether you're going through it right now or whether you've been through it in the past. So I think those songs are really, really good for that. And then Survival's a bit weird, but obviously it's about it was written for the Olympics, with the Olympics in mind, but still, it for some people, not everybody, it has that kind of sense of it has that sense of, I guess, willingness to. It's a bit motivating, isn't it, for some people, I suppose, but some people might not get that, I think. But I think
it's so surface level. It's so first look at achieving something. It's it's like Butterflies and Hurricanes couldn't be bothered That's how I see Survival into like lyrically. I'm gonna win rather than you've got to be the best. It's
Yeah.
so surface level observation in my mind. The riff's great. The musically, I think it's got some real something for it. I just
The
think
heavy riff
lyrically,
at the end
I
is great.
yeah, it's great. But I think lyrically, when I listen to the lyrics, I would just want to point and laugh at it.
There is points in it, I do have to say, that really do tickle me. They that like that especially like the intro, the you know and
Yeah.
the cheesy kind of clicks in there, you know. And oh, and the other, there's one lyric in it that always makes me laugh because it's the one where he's like, "It's a race, it's a race."
I was gonna say trying to go through it of like which one is it going to be. I was like, of course it's going to be It's a Race. Oh my god!
But it's just like it's almost like he's having a conversation with. It's a race. It is, Matt. Yeah, it's a race. Yeah.
It's as though he's never heard of the Olympics before, and he's like Googled it. Okay, qu'est-ce que c'est Olympics? And he's like, it's a race. It's a race. Quickly get this down.
Oh my god.
Oh my god. Yeah, and I think that is a good example of kind of getting away from reality, just singing about, you know, a group of multinational people doing sport, and it's like, I think 20.
It's a difficult topic.
I think 26-year-old Matt might have written something a bit more.
Yeah.
I don't know how old he was at any point in his career. I've kind of gave up. I think they were like 20, 21. When they did Showbiz or something.
Well, he didn't really age much until like the sort of the last couple of years, I suppose. But you know, like he kind of he just stayed the same. Like
stayed the same, and it's hit 40, and that kind of, you know, maybe that more of the finer dining that a successful music career can get you. Kind of, he's flabbed out a little bit.
I think he'll. Yeah, I think the thing is he'll lose that obviously when he starts touring and running around and doing stuff like that again. I mean, he hasn't.
No, even when he's been on tour, he looks a bit kind of like chunky. I think it's just what happens to you when you get older. Maybe that will change now that he's divorced.
Perhaps.
And he'll be chasing the next woman, because Matt Bellamy has a type. It's tall, blonde American women. So.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, yeah. Like, I mean, from Kate Hudson onwards, I mean, his girlfriend prior to that was they were brunettes, weren't they? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought certainly now, yeah, he goes for women that are taller than him, which is not particularly a difficult.
That's not difficult. That's not.
Yeah.
We're not height shaming here. We're not. I'm not a tall.
No,
I'm not a tall man.
I mean, yeah, he's not a particularly tall guy, but I mean, yeah, he has a type, I suppose, for blonde women that are a bit taller than him. But there you go. There you go.
It's fine.
Maybe he'll write a song about that. Tall. Well, the first track number 1 on the new Muse album, "Tall Blonde Woman."
Oh my god! Yeah, it's very much written like Survival. She's tall, and then just a big riff and an arpeggio.
Yeah, she's tall. Yeah, she's tall.
She's fucking tall.
And she's really blonde.
And it's like, Matt, kind of, you like your Aryan women. This could go in any sort of weird direction. One speculation for myself is the reasons behind or a contributing factor for the divorce. I'm only going to mention this very, very briefly. We're going to get into politics ever so slightly. I know we might have people in the background going, stay out of politics. But I think it's worth mentioning. Now, Matt has arguably been, centre left here and there, although he voted for Brexit. No one's perfect. Well, the theory is that he did vote for Brexit, but he was very much for keeping the union, i.e., no Scottish independence, because Scotland should never go independent, in my view. talking the lyrical content in their songs kind of points more towards like a left leaning perspective, but there are some things that his wife had supported, liked, or engaged with on social media that is much more to the right.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to mention like specific examples because that's, when we're going to get into a kind of like sticky water, but there are indicators of kind of political differences. And now breaking up with someone just because of political differences, light political differences is not, I'd say, a good reason to break up with someone unless they are, an extreme. I'm not going to say the particular word of a political extremist from Europe in the 1930s and 40s, but, that's a valid reason to break up with someone and never, ever talk to them ever again. But that's not what she's doing, and that's not what she's supporting, I hope. But it could be a contributing factor because of Matt's, like, the stuff that he has made music about and made a significant part of his career. Maybe a bit hypocritical of him to kind of have those two sides kind of at the same time, like a bit of double think to bring in a 1984 reference. Zero evidence for this, but kind of observations that I've made could be a contributing factor. I don't know if you'd ever come across that side from Ellie, but I think she comes from a conservative Texan background. Her family's from Texas, and therefore probably a safe bet that her family are right wing, not necessarily supporting the current president of the US. There are significant Republicans that don't, which is good because he's a maniac. But it kind of comes in all different ways. It could be a contributing factor.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I think. Yeah, that's essentially my view as well. I think, especially they are. It's very different political views when you take someone from Tidmouth, Devon, and you take someone from Texas in the US. They are very. That can cause very
such different upbringings, and to kind of collide that together. Yeah.
I think, I definitely agree with the fact that it well and truly could have been a big contributing factor towards why this this breakup could have potentially occurred. I think there is a strong reason to why that might have happened. Especially because they are two very political people. Matt has written for years about his political views and the way he sees the world heading from a political standpoint, and she's from Texas, so and I think that's
not to say that is not to say all people from Texas are no. right wing nutters, because in Dallas, Texas. It's not Dallas. It's Houston, Texas, or one of the major cities in Texas is very much blue. It's very Democrat. Because as we see in big cities, they tend to go more to the left because, there's all sorts of things of like city living, metropolitan living that, can turn people left leaning for all sorts of socioeconomic reasons. It's just that the rest of Texas is extremely red because it's very rural and, traditional backgrounds. That's why. Not saying at all that all people from Texas are right-wing nutters. Not saying that at all. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with being a Republican. It's more of like more into the specifics. It's saying you support ICE. It's just stupid.
Yeah. But certainly, I mean, whatever your side you're on, I suppose in Texas, it's more the fact that they are just very strongly backing whatever party they're going for. They are very what's the word for it? I suppose they're just very passionate towards it and very vocal about it and about their views on certain things. And I think that even if you're in a relationship, like over here, for example, and one of you is on one side and one of you is on the other, you can have those views, but I think some people sort of just accept that, okay, it's my view, and I don't really want to bring it into the relationship, because it's not going to make a difference. It's just going to do bad if I try and convert that person to my beliefs, and vice versa. So I think, yeah, I think perhaps what could have happened here is, because she, is very obviously dedicated and very passionate about her certain political views, and so is Matt. They have collided somewhere along the way, and that is what's perhaps could have caused this. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I'll make one final comment on this, because I don't want to get stuck into it, and the podcast is already probably long enough.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll cut it down. I say that every episode and I never do, but
Yeah.
it's a lot of work. Although thankfully in this
is.
episode I don't have to animate anything.
True.
The other ones I've had to like bring in images, and that means I have to watch the entire episode twice to find where that has to come up. But yeah. The one thing I will mention, is not fair to kind of just put all this on Ellie, because Matt's really good at articulating his views, but not in a kind of people who don't agree with me politically are wrong. He's never done that, and he's very good at evenly displaying his view in a non-aggressive way, and I really like that. And he's been writing political music since 2001. Citizen Erased is basically 1984 as a song, and that's the basis of where that is, unpersoning someone and removing them from society, and then the explosion of what happened around 2001, in Iraq and Afghanistan with the US and the UK and so on. But I don't follow Ellie. I don't think I've never seen her appear anywhere, and especially never seen her anywhere spouting or putting out political views. So I don't know exactly what her views are. So it's really not fair to pit them against each other. Pinch of salt or and so on. But from a surface level, from what I've seen, what she has supported, it could be argued that she's a complete idiot and just kind of supporting these things that are just saying things that sound nice but are actually very much strong right-wing talking points. Yeah, but just from what I've seen, without kind of looking too into it, and again, I'll double down and say, I think the political aspect of their views could be a contributing factor for separation, very much not, and hopefully not the reason for it, because I think that would be a bit silly.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, certainly, yeah. Especially when there's obviously you've got kids involved and things like that. You shouldn't let your political views sort of, they shouldn't really enter the relationship, in my opinion, at any point. But if obviously we don't even know, it might have nothing to do with politics, but if it does, and that is the reason that they've decided to part ways, considering they've got children, I think that would obviously be on the weaker side, in my opinion, of a reason to end it there. Yeah.
Let's move away from the reasons why this could be a really good album for Muse and talk more about the content of this album. So we want to consider the structure. Now, there's only so far we can go with this. This is all speculation. It's more about the things that we want to see from it. But there's something that I want to mention, and hopefully that you agree with me with this agree with me on this, Josh, is that in the last album or two, Muse had released quite early on the heavier song. Kill or Be Killed was played live before the album released, so we got to see a live interpretation of this song before it released properly, which is interesting. And then the other way around at the moment of this current era with Unraveling, it released first on BBC Radio 1. There was the exclusive release of it, and I was there to listen to it when it released, and they played it twice. Nice to see that Muse let the BBC have the exclusive. I'm a big supporter of the BBC. Independent broadcasting, and it's government funded, but it is not run by the state. It's funded by the state, and the state have absolutely nothing to do with its content. Getting away from a political aspect, I think we're not. We're still talking politics. But it released around the world before that as well. So actually, with the use of something like a VPN, you could have listened to it from New Zealand first, and I know I did. and I was really blown away by it. But what I'm building to is that both of those songs were heavy, "Kill or Be Killed," super heavy. That strange tuning that Matt used, and then "Unraveling" is an 8-string beast. And what I've seen people spec before is that, great, this is the direction the album is going. It's going to be a metal album. And both times, and even before then, I'd gone, no. That's really not a big brain move to assume you're going to be doing a whole metal album. You haven't been paying attention if you think that that's going to go that way, because Muse never do one genre for an album. Think about Will of the People, where this was whole pitched as. It came around Muse's contract saying that they are contractually obliged to potentially do a greatest hits album. And then they turned that on its head and turned The Will of the People into a greatest hits vibe of Muse. So all original, all new songs, but, from the things that they are, best at, the Queen song, the Queen type song, the prog song, the big heavy song, the soppy ballady one, all over the place, and a bit of a mismatch hodgepodge. With what we've spoken about as to the reasons why it could be a good album, we're not going to tread that again. We've got consistency of lyrical content, many avenues to explore from that one theme. And the way that Drones was, that concept album, CIA operative trained to kill, rebelling, that narrative from there with a few bits here and there that are bizarre. Looking at You, Mercy, doesn't make sense. We have an album with the potential of sticking with one core theme and exploring different areas of that. It's new territory for Matt in terms of a major breakup. Won't tread those again, and that might temper how that music is going to go. I think we'd mentioned before, it could ground that music, make it a bit more humble, make it much more smaller scale to then really bring it out. So we might see less electronic elements. Muse had previously said that they kind of flip between a guitar, drums, bass setup to a electronic or experimental side. Great case in point was Drones, 2015, guitar, drums, bass, and then Simulation Theory, very electronic, very synthy, very, very 80s. And then moving forward with Will of the People, went back to more that greatest hits vibe, but a bit more with the guitar, drums, bass setup. So that means that this next album is more of the electronic one, I think. I got those arms right, but hopefully this could kind of temper down. Not saying that Unraveling is determining the direction of this. They've said that they've got a bunch of songs and they've written them. Things might change. And that Matt wanted to try to get some more out of the 8-string guitar to get some more big riffs. And he also recently, at the same time, taking delivery of the 8-string guitar, he got another 7-string guitar. So it leans more towards heavier stuff, not necessarily a given. But we all know that Muse do other things as well. I mean, a great example of that is Soldier's Poem in Black Holes and Revelations. Coming straight out of Map of the Problematic with big sound. Soldier's Poem, tiny little protest song about the Iraq War, and then building with Invincible. I think that's a lovely example of how versatile Muse are. We could really see this go. I'd love to believe that Muse have got another Black Holes in them. It's not my favorite album. It's like a very, very, very close second favorite, because I've got Origin and Absolution as a joint first, essentially. Love that. I think they're really in a position to do one last great album.
They are, and I think now is really the time to do it, because I think that they've gone on this this wave of producing many albums that obviously just haven't necessarily pleased fans or weren't exactly what fans were expecting. And I think now is that really that time to do it, because I think it's either now or never. because there's only so long that you can kind of go before I guess fans kind of give up and say, right, I'll always love this band, but they're never going to come back the way that I think. I think there is still that kind of hope amongst the Muse fan base of like as you said, I think they have got something more there to give, and with obviously the breakup that's happened that we've covered, I think again that even more points towards the fact of now could be the time to really hone in and write those songs and realistically be Muse again. Like be Muse again back in 2000, in the early 2000s. I think that is the opportunity is now to do that. Yeah.
I think you've perfectly succinctly said that. Be Muse again.
Thank you.
No, I think that's absolutely stunning. That's a really good summary of that. I mean, I just love the sound of my own voice, and I just love to go on. If I considered what I was actually saying before I opened my mouth, maybe I could actually say something as eloquent as that. So really well done, Josh. Yeah, they spent so many years in the weeds in some ways, in some respects to their career, since the Second Law. That's over 10 years. That's 14 years of weird experimentation.
Yeah.
And it could pull them back. We don't know until the album drops. We don't know until we see more, even before then, the glimpses of where things are going, but they won't reveal too much.
No.
I mean, unless they do something like what they did with Drones, where they essentially released 3/4 of the album before the album dropped, which was a bit of a strange one.
Yeah.
So moving on to my last point, I think, unless you have anything to add, but I think there's a strong possibility, this is the word I'm looking for, that this could be Muse's last album.
Yeah.
I've deliberately not mentioned this to you before, as this is an idea. Obviously, pre-production, we talk about things that we want to mention in this, so we know roughly where we're going. But I think this has a possibility of being their last album. It's album 10, correct?
Yeah.
Nice, solid round number. They will have seen like the way their career's gone. They've definitely reached the peak of the bell curve, and it's only downhill from here, as bands and artists do. Do they want to be a kind of Rolling Stones thing where they constantly have endless final farewell tours? Do they want to keep beating the dead horse? Looking at you two, where their grandiose, big, epic scale is outweighing what they can physically do. I'm not saying that they're all tired and knackered. I mean, probably in really good shape, but is there that point, and do they want to start doing different things? I know we've mentioned a bit before about they're at the stage where they can do whatever they want to experiment. They just do the albums for fun. They're doing other projects as well. I'm not saying I've got zero, as I always say, I've got zero evidence for anything I'm saying. I've just got this kind of weird feeling that it may be, what if it is their last final album? Although if Matt's going through a divorce, he might need some extra money, so he'll kind of keep beating that dead horse for another album or two.
That's true, yeah.
But if I didn't stop Chris, divorce and extra kids.
Yeah.
It's just something that's in the back of my mind. I've got no evidence for it, so we haven't got a lot to talk about. I've just got this feeling. It just feels like it's going that way. At this point, they started the band in '94, struck with their first album in '99. So we've got almost we're a little bit over 30 years of the band.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways older than some of their fans. Could this be they've made a really good solid career? This could be the last hurrah. Well, maybe they don't even know. They could get to they make the album, do the tour, and go, "Are we done here?" I don't know. Yeah. I've just got this feeling. I don't want to be right, because they're my favorite band. I don't want to see them stop. Although I do believe that their last 4 albums have not been as strong as their first 4 albums. Or Showbiz up to Black Holes are their strongest. Those 4 just sublime. Everything after that has started for me to went downhill. But there's always songs in every album here and there that are really fucking good.
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think?
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously, who knows? I suppose they've definitely slowed down their. Well, they've really compacted their tours now. So they're doing a hell of a lot less shows, and they're visiting a lot less places, but they're trying to, I guess, visit places that they've never been able to tour before, like India and things like that. So
well, if they can reschedule those shows,
if they could, well, they've got to reschedule that now. So yeah, but it certainly is. It certainly is a possibility because, and the thing is, will it happen? Obviously, who knows? But would I be okay with it? No, not right now, because I wouldn't be, because they need, as I said before, they need to come back and I'm quoting myself here, but they need to be Muse one last time before
that backs up my point of last album.
Before they close the book. Okay, you're not. If you're running a TV series and it starts off great, and then in the middle it starts to get a little bit boring and a little bit dull, the best thing you can do is say we had a good run, but end it great. You got to end it really, really well, because that can transform a series from mediocre to unbelievable. Look at Breaking Bad, right? Breaking Bad slowed down a lot through, oh God, was it series? Just in the middle somewhere, right? To say that, and they, and then they did the last bit, and then they did the last few episodes, and it ended really, really great, and it's become a legendary series. So it's okay if you dwindle off. My point being, it's okay if you dwindle off in the middle a little bit. Maybe Muse have gone over the middle a little bit. I think now it's sort of gone on a little bit too long, but they still have that opportunity there to end on a high note, and I think that's what's important. So I think, if this is going to be the last album, I'd say really do your best to end it on a high, because I think they owe it to the fans, but more or less they owe it to themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Really I think that they would. I think they'll probably resonate more with that as a kind of owe it to themselves. They're very aware of how strong the really hardcore fan base are. They've got two fans right here doing an entire podcast on their gear and speculation about albums and stuff, and I think they'd resonate more on the personal level if they owed it to themselves. I think you're absolutely right. Interesting point about TV shows. I mean, I never watched Breaking Bad. I watched the pilot and thought this is rubbish because it was so slow paced. Now I like slow paced stuff, but it's very American, and I don't really like American stuff. Although there's some shows that I really resonate with that are American shows. Like at the moment, I am watching Homeland. And that show is utterly fantastic. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger and better, and really tight writing. It's got a lot of stuff to do with the CIA, so I'm like right there, spy stuff. And to hand it over to that in terms of a TV show, when it starts to dip a bit, right, you need to cut it, and then stick the landing, I think is how you were kind of saying it.
Yeah.
Stick the landing. Or you get really bad ends to shows like Umbrella Academy, a show that I recently watched, and the final series of Umbrella Academy is garbage.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, but
character motivations don't make sense. Really rushed, very much lowered budget. First 4 seasons, first 3 seasons, really, really strong. But they stick the landing in it, or they don't. The other great example is Lost. Good show, and then the ending was just bizarre. I think Dexter was another one where they did not get the ending right, the finale right, because it never builds up, never gets that, never satisfies the audience. Or you just kind of weird spin-off after spin-off, and it doesn't really kind of work at all. Star Trek. And I think you're right. You don't want to go out on a high, really stick that landing. So if it is the last album, you want to put like maximum effort into it. And as you've brilliantly kind of articulated that, their touring schedule had slowed down, and the album releases have slowed down. They've added an extra year in the gap between albums, and a lot more dates in between So a lot more time off between dates on their tour. I mean, when they were younger, but looking at Origin, Absolution time, it was bang, 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 get loads of dates in there. Black Holes of Revelations had a really great long tour in it. Then it started to stretch out the time between.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why I'm thinking, is it the last album? They're seeing the way it's going. It's like,
Yeah.
before we make an embarrassment of ourselves, like, acts like Elton John, where he was like, he shuffled on stage
Yeah.
to play a song, or like the Rolling Stones, where it's just constant farewell tour after farewell tour, and it's just like, okay. And another great example, AC/DC.
Yeah.
Christ, embarrassing to be caught dead at one of their shows because it's just terrible. And it's like, what are they doing it for? Do they really need the cash? There's a great anecdote from like ZZ Top decades ago. They'd like, right now, let's wind it in. Oh, we've spent all the money. Right, let's come back to do another album. Do you want to? It kind of tarnishes the reputation.
Yeah, exactly. And as much as I appreciate some of these bands just going on forever and ever and ever and seeing how long they can go for, and obviously people like the Rolling Stones being classed as the Rolling Bones for you, because like it's incredible considering their age and obviously what Mick Jagger can do. I mean, he can still jump about a stage like crazy at his age. It's incredible. But
Yeah.
I do. Maybe they can get away with it, but I certainly think
it's a 1 in a million. One of those bands where they can just get it done. And I think when the Rolling Stones were, they came from the era of good music and proper music, or whatever you want to articulate it as. They came out around that time, and bands like these days just stop and do other things. The mentality of music has really changed.
Yeah, and I think that the problem is with bands, and they're not doing this consciously, by the way. This isn't like they've sat down and just said we're going. But one thing that is important, I think that they forget about maybe is that like maybe AC/DC kind of think, well, I want to go back on tour and I want to do it again. And, you're well within your rights. I guess, AC/DC, that's your, it's all band members agree, it's your baby, it's what you want to do with it. But is it? Because it's kind of it doesn't really belong to you anymore. It belongs to the fans as well. And that's what they've kind of forgot about. And, when it's your favourite band who've been around and they've been legendary for years, and, you got them giving the performance that they are now. Same thing with Guns N' Roses, obviously, with Axl's voice, because he just can't sing anymore. But
it's
kind of it's a little bit, dare I say, embarrassing, isn't it, to stand there and kind of be like, a bit like that, isn't it? Like,
yeah, it's like, yeah. Well, but again, like a good example of that is the AC/DC one, and it's like, oh god, they can't play.
Yeah, and the problem is unfortunately, there has been some Muse shows where that started to crop up for me a little bit. Matt Bellamy's cringy dancing on stage. Do we need that? Not really. I get he's being funny. I know that. But
I see it as being funny, but I know what you mean.
Yeah, I do.
I know where you're going.
I get the comedy. Did I laugh? I certainly did. I laughed a lot. And I thought it was funny. And when he was, there was parts where he's jokingly singing the like verses of Uprising and things like that, and I was just like, but that bit I didn't laugh at, because I was just like, please sing the song properly.
Yeah,
because I would like to hear, if I paid money, I don't want to hear you sort of joking around doing silly stuff, and with respect, like but if we're still paying money to come and see it, I want to see Muse. You're great. Stop trying to be charismatic, funny, and take the piss on stage, and it should be serious all the way to the end.
Yeah.
Especially when you've got, I mean, for me, do you know what I mean? Screw it, I'll buy a ticket every time. I don't care. But like when you've got this is this is kids' birthday money for some people. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Kids' birthday presents. They've come they've come to see their favourite band. And if the kids come to see their favourite band and they want to hear their favourite song, and let's say that song was Uprising, okay, bad choice, but yeah,
could do better. Get a better song.
But if it is, I mean, let's get it right. It probably is for a lot of people, because it's one of their most listened to songs according to Spotify. But and they sing it badly like that and take the piss a little bit on stage, that's quite disappointing for that person, you know. I feel that that's a bit disappointing. You wouldn't see a lot of other artists maybe do that, and I'd say that's just one. I have very few criticisms about, like Muse's general live performance. They always try and bring as much energy as possible, but let's get rid of that. We don't need that. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And I think, but there was you were saying obviously about are they tired now, and obviously I think that Chris did mention the fact that in one of his interviews that he was doing on a podcast, that, and it was quite sad to really hear, I guess, because he was standing. He apparently came off stage and he was standing there with Dom and Matt, and they all looked at each other and just thought, "I'm tired, man." Like, do you know what I mean? They just sort of all looked at each other like, "I'm really exhausted," and it's
Mm.
really and it's really hard to do these shows, and they're not as easy as they once were. And
Yep.
it's just a sign that time's gone on, times have changed, and people do get older, and to do what they're doing with the energy that we expect from them at their age is a hard thing to accomplish. I mean, Chris has had a hip replacement. After he was playing football. I don't know if you know about this, but he's basically a hip replacement. If there's an interview where he was discussing his it's a really good podcast. I've forgotten the name of it, but he was discussing funny things that happened on tour, and he was playing football because they had like the Muse football team and things like that, where they play with the roadies and stuff like that. And he fell over.
God,
Or something like that.
Chris and football injuries.
Yeah, or something like that. I think, yeah, if I'm remembering correctly,
Tw-
there was
20
one where he broke his wrist, and there was one where he broke
yeah,
his,
the
damaged
wrist
his
break.
hip. Yeah.
Yeah, the wrist break was 2004. The hip one, it was recovering in July of 2018.
Oh, okay, yeah. So the one I'm referring to was his wrist then. So I've cross-contaminated those two. But yeah, there was one where he injured his hip, and he had a hip replacement. But
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
the hip. Yeah, the hip one was 2018. The wrist one was like way back in 2004. That was like V Fest 2004,
Yeah.
where they got Morgan on to play bass for the first time for them.
Yeah, that's
They
right,
were
yeah.
they were playing football with a band. There's an interview with I can't remember the presenter that they were doing it with, but yeah, he got slide tackled by the guitarist or the singer from that band. Then that band now no longer operate. But yeah, but the hip one is actually is new to me.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's just, yeah, I guess it's just, yeah, they're a sign they're all looking at each other, and they all feel the same, that they are very, very tired of touring. And I wonder if now it becomes a case of we're just touring for the fans now. We're just trying to go around. We're trying to give but countries we haven't visited, we're going to try and give everybody an opportunity to see us, because, when we know we're not going to be around, I guess, doing this for, I guess, much longer. That's not to say, by the way, that they might choose to do like we're going to like a Coldplay thing where they said, we're going to stop making music, but we'll still tour every so often. So that might be the case, but I'm treating it as if, like, we're going to stop touring for at least a while, and then we'll come back to it maybe at a later date, perhaps. But
Yeah, a couple of bands do that. I mean, the Cardigans do that. They tour, but they don't release
Yeah.
music. I really like the Cardigans. Their albums
Yeah.
are stunning. Their last two albums that they made in like 2005, 2006, a bit weird. But like their 90s stuff, oh, brilliant. And there's another band,
Yeah.
Kosheen. I don't know if you've ever heard of them. I don't know if I'm
Haven't heard
pronouncing
of
it
them,
right.
no.
There's two albums of theirs that I know of really well. I think they're the same. They don't make new albums; they just tour. And yeah, that's just what they do, because I think that's just how they prefer to do it. Kind of the opposite. Well, no, I was thinking of another band like Portishead, and they have only ever made 3 albums, but they don't tour. What's her name? Beth Gibbons hates touring.
Mm. It's just that just reminds me of that Michael Jackson video when they're saying it, just like, can you just say that you like to tour with a bit more enthusiasm? And he's just like, I don't like it though.
Yeah. Yeah, Portishead
I
have
love
only
to
made
tour.
yeah, Portishead have only made 3 albums: Dummy, Portishead, and Third. Yeah, they're so good in the studio.
Yeah,
Just really
yeah.
really tight, and they're just very much more of like do it right. Yeah, and I don't think they do tours. Not so
But yeah,
sure.
I think like I think we're probably. I mean, because we've gone that we've gone past the stage of right. Let's slow it down a little bit, and that's we're not going to do as many shows, and we're not going to do as many albums frequently as we've been doing like every 2 years. We're going
Mm.
to slow that down a little bit. And to be honest, that bit got a bit blurred. I don't know. I think a lot of people actually didn't really even notice that because of what happened with COVID and things like that. I think that sort of just distorted everybody's timeline a little bit, didn't it?
Yeah, that definitely covered.
Yeah, yeah, and but I think people are starting to notice now. Oh yeah, they haven't been releasing music as often as they were. So yes, they have slowed
Yeah,
down, and eventually, what happens when you slow down, and then they slowly realise I'm still tired, but we're doing less shows still, and I'm still I'm still not. I'm not feeling great, it's
still
quite a
not
lot of
there.
work still. So, and that can only go on until the point where they just have to go, well, guys, we can't really reduce it much more. We either
Yeah,
do it as we are, or we stop and we have a little bit of a break for a while,
yeah,
which
and
is
I think
which is
they
possible.
and they'd hinted that in interviews before, take
Yeah,
very much of an established break, and that was around the time the birth of Matt's latest child,
yeah,
his new son, where he's saying, take quite a significant break. You have to put that down to he just wants to spend time with his kids, which is a bit kind of maybe selfish from Chris's perspective. He's had 10 children and still kept pace with the band. Obviously, when they're making music, he's at home and he
yeah,
comes in for the recording of his part specifically. But it just is how it is, and I think maybe the period around lockdown, COVID 2020, it made them kind of realize, oh, yeah. And then obviously they then did do Will of the People, but it is very much in their own control.
yeah,
Um, I
yeah,
mean, we're reaching kind of the very much toward the very much the end of this. I just want to look briefly of like the timeline of their Will of the People tour. And it started in 2022. So there's a lot of dates in there up to 2024. So the bulk of it is like 2 years and then 2 dates in 24, and they were not part of the show they tour. They were just completely separate shows. I mean, there was almost 12 months between the last date in 23 and then the first show in 24, which was the
yeah,
Formula One Do Arena Abu Dhabi. Stupidity. I made a whole video of it. They're very hypocritical for doing that show, I say, and I still stand by it. So yeah, just 2 years. So tour started in April of 22 and finished in November of 23.
yeah,
Almost, more than 18 months. And
yeah.
absolutely knackered them. They were all knocking close to 50.
Yeah, I think the hardest bit for them is the US side of the tour for sure,
Oh,
because you're just going from state to state
relentless.
to state to state, and they were doing
Relentless. Yep.
multiple nights in each state, and it's just that is what really killed them. But the problem is that Muse are actually pretty popular in the United States now, and certainly over the last like well to be honest, it was their first few albums that weren't. It was more sort of UK and Europe based, wasn't it? And then they really broke into the US by the time that
The
sort of
Resistance.
Black Holes and Resistance, sort of Resistance sort of time. Yeah, they were really popular, and they did that huge sort of US leg on their tour, and multiple nights at the Staples Center and places like that.
Yeah.
So they've now sort of they can't just alienate those guys over there. So and that's a huge part of the tour. So
I think
that's
there's an interesting kind of metric or gauge of where they were from one tour to the next. If you look at Absolution tour,
yeah,
They were doing arenas, stadiums, festivals in Europe. You know, Rock am Ring, even well, yeah, mostly Europe. Rock am Ring, V Fest, Glastonbury, Earl's Court, um, all sorts, what have you. That's a Pink Pop. That's just, you know, trying to pluck those things out at random. You know, big. And then their US leg was clubs, 300 cap venues.
Yeah.
What a shift. And that was Absolution. And then you go to Black Holes, maybe not as big. Certainly with the Resistance, that's when it really exploded for them. And you know, the US has become quite a significant part of their audience. You know, hence Matt eventually moved over to the US, to LA. Can't really think why, because I think it's a horrendous place in the world, but that's just me. But yeah, I think it's a really difficult thing for them to go, right, we're slowing down. Do we just really wind it down and keep going, or do we put some dignity on this and just, you know, call it a day and what have you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think we've sort of summed it up pretty well. I think, haven't we? I think we don't know, obviously. I mean, all of this has kind of been.
It's completely
hypothesis, isn't it? But
hypothesis. It's completely academic. It could all go differently. But to sum it up, I think this could potentially be. This is just my view. I wanted to give you your summary as well. I think this is going to be Muse's best album in at least the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Because of this breakup, it's going to get more of a rich, deep, lyrical content to it, and much more reflective basis for the music, tempered down much more towards what Black Holes and Revelations was doing, and potentially could, diverse genres to play around with, but all kind of really kind of tightly coming together. But could potentially be their last album because of where they are in their career and where they're finding themselves at the end of each show, the end of a tour, absolutely exhausted. Do they want to drag it out and embarrass themselves, or do they want to go out with a bang and some dignity and go, right, we're still relatively capable of doing these shows. Let's do it one big last time.
Yeah.
And so we're not thought of in a unfavorable way. That's my view.
Yeah, because we haven't got the Muse country album yet, so you know we've got to have that.
Oh my god! Your summary?
Well, yeah, I pretty much exactly what you just said. I think, yeah, if they're going to go out, they've certainly got to go out with a bang, and that goes for the album plus the tour.
Yeah. Of course, goes without saying.
One thing I didn't mention as well that I'd love to see, if it is going to be sort of like the final tour, at least for a while, is I'd like to see them play Wembley Stadium again. I think that
last show. Last show.
I'd love it if they did a big old tour. Do you know what I mean? To try to play all the places they haven't played before, and make it as big as they possibly can, because it's going to be their last one. Why not? And then finish off with maybe 2 dates at Wembley. I think that'd be gold. That would be gold if they could do that and get it right.
Yeah.
Just to prove. Do you know what I mean? I'd love it, because I'd love just to prove that, we may be retiring, but we could sell Wembley out in 2007, but we can sure as hell sell it out now still. So,
Yeah.
And I think that'd be good.
Yeah, that would be a great final show of the career, like Wembley, because they were the first band to properly open Wembley as well. The good kind of great symmetry, pun intended. Great symmetry right there. And I know we've just said that they'd be like exhausted, but it'd be good if they could turn it into like a 3-hour show where they get in lots of like deep cuts.
Muse Eras tour.
Yeah.
A Muse Eras tour, yeah. I think so many people could copy that format, and I think Muse aren't the sort of people that sort of they're more like leaders of example, aren't they? Rather than taking Taylor's idea and sort of, I guess, doing it as their own. But I think they could get away with doing it, as in, yes, it is very similar to that, but we're doing it in our own.
Oh yeah, they'd absolutely make sure they've got their fingerprints all over that. They very much make it a Muse thing. I wouldn't worry about that.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So there we go. This was a special kind of like mega one-off video. I mean, we do have a habit of doing 2-hour long podcasts, so hopefully that was enjoyable. Maybe it's probably a good argument to turn them into proper podcasts so you can just listen to the audio. But
I think so.
if anyone's actually still listening at this point, but it's still fun. Yeah, so there we go. Good speculation. We may well come back to doing this sort of format. We're going to talk about specific things that we like. We're both musicians and guitarists. Let's talk about guitars of Matt that we like, and other things as well. But yeah, this has been a speculation on this upcoming album, where we think it's going to go, where we think it's been. For good or bad. Let us know what you thought about it down in the comments below. I've been Harry.
I've been Josh.
And thanks for watching and listening.